Okay, let's talk about your next project, which is gonna be these systems art tape paintings, okay? So these are all the things that you might need, okay? You're gonna need some paint, you're gonna need some tape, you're gonna need a cutting mat, a ruler, an X-Acto knife, paintbrush, a mixie palette. This worksheet, if you have it, will be helpful, and you are gonna need 3 pieces of this paper, okay? So let's get started. Okay, so for this assignment, you're gonna be making 3 paintings, okay? So the first thing you need to do is you need to get your papers, and we're just gonna go ahead and tape the edges like we have done for other projects, okay? So I'm just gonna pull this out, okay? And I'm gonna make sure it lines up nicely with my edge. Okay, stick it on there. Fold over the corners. Okay, and I'm just gonna keep doing that until I get all the sides covered. Okay, so it's like this, and I'm just gonna do all of those really quick. Okay, so all 3 of your paintings need to look like this. They need to have the tape around the edges and look like this. I'm not gonna do that because I don't wanna waste tape and paper, okay? But pretend that they all look like this. But we're gonna just focus on this one. So essentially what we are gonna be doing with this assignment is you guys are going to use tape to make shapes. You're gonna put the shapes on your paper and you're gonna paint over the tape, and then we'll take off the tape, okay? So depending on where your tape is and how it overlaps will kind of determine how your painting looks at the end. And it can be really cool. It can make some cool stuff, okay? So you're gonna be doing that with the tape, but there's a little bit more to it. So we're doing something called systems art. And system art is when you make kind of rules for your paintings or your art pieces and you follow the rules in order to make them. So each of the paintings that you're going to be doing has a set of rules that goes with it. On your assignment, on the Hard Edge Systems painting on canvas, you have this little graphic that says all the rules, okay? So your first painting needs to follow all 4 of these rules. Your second painting needs to follow these rules, and your third painting needs to follow these rules. So I'm going to work on the first painting to kind of show you, okay? So my first painting needs an analogous color scheme, which if you don't remember, look at your worksheet. Okay, my analogous is right here. My analogous color scheme means that it's next to each other on the color wheel, okay? So I actually think I'm going to work with like this yellow orangey group right here. So I have some yellow paint and some orangey reddy paint, okay? So I'm gonna work with that. Okay, and then it also needs to be asymmetrical. Now, if there's any words on here that you don't know what they mean, the definitions are on canvas, and that can help you know. But essentially what asymmetrical means is that it's like the opposite of symmetrical. So symmetrical would be like, if I have this dividing the middle, my paper dividing the middle, I have a paint on each side. So it's the same on each side. Asymmetrical means that there's like 2 on one side, none on the other, okay? So it's not balanced. So essentially your first painting needs to look not balanced, okay? It can't look like it's cut down the middle and match on both sides. It looks not balanced, okay? The next rule is that I'm gonna leave the tape on between each layer, which might not make sense right now, but it will as I show you how this works. And then the last thing is you need to use 4 different colors and you need to have 4 different layers of paint, okay? So that means that I'm going to have 4 layers of tape that I'm going to put down, and then I'm going to have 4 layers of paint that I'm going to paint over the top of the tape, okay? So let's get started, and let me kind of show you how this is going to work, because it's kind of confusing. But it's not confusing, but it's confusing to talk about it and not see it. So let me show you what I mean. Okay, so I'm going to start with my cutting mat and a roll of tape and my little X-Acto knife and maybe my ruler, okay? And what you're gonna do is you are just gonna lay down the tape like this. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect, but we're just gonna lay down our tape and you're gonna cut little shapes into the tape. So you can do whatever you want. Like you could do you could use your X-Acto knife and make straight edges and make little squares if you want. You could do little diagonals if you want. I'm gonna do some long strips for mine. So I'm just gonna lay my ruler this way, and I'm just gonna cut my piece of tape like this. Okay, and I'm just gonna do all my pieces right now so that they're all kind of done and ready to go. Okay, and then once I have my tape ready, I'm gonna get my paper, and I'm just gonna peel this up. So here's my little strip that I made, and then I'm gonna place it. Now remember, I'm trying to make it not symmetrical, so I'm gonna try and make it kind of heavy on one side, but you can place these however you like. Okay, and I'm gonna make sure my tape is nice and stuck to my paper. Okay, so we're gonna start with that. Okay, now I'm gonna do some pieces of tape that aren't just like straight lines, okay, which you totally can do. So what I'm gonna do, I kind of want something in this bottom corner-ish. So I'm just gonna make like, I'm gonna lay down my tape like this. Okay, and I'm just gonna do another piece of tape like right over the top of it. Like this. And we'll do one more. Okay, so I have my layers of tape all lined up like this. Okay, then I can get my X-Acto knife and I can just like do pretty much like whatever I want with it. Like kind of like I'm drawing. Okay, so I'm gonna do a little curve, a little point. Okay, and then what I can do is I can pull off the tape like this. Okay, so I just have that little shape that I made. Okay, and then here's my little shape that I wanted. I'm just gonna bring my paper over. And then I can just pull up this whole thing. Okay, and then I can just stick it wherever I would like it to go. We're just gonna put it like right there. Okay, it's kind of like that. And then you guys can do whatever you want. Like you can do the whole thing, you can leave it kind of blank. But this will be my first layer of tape. So remember, I have to do 4 of them, but this will be my first one. So then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a layer of paint. Okay, so I think for my first layer, I'm just gonna do, we'll just do yellow. So we're just gonna get a little bit of paint. Remember, we don't wanna use too much paint. So we're just doing a little bit. If we need more, we can get more, but if you use too much, you can't put that back. So we're just gonna start with a little. And then you're just gonna get it and you're just gonna go over the whole thing. Okay, so we're just gonna fill this whole thing in. I don't really need to go over the tape parts. Like this big tape part, I don't really need to go over that. But anywhere I can see the paper, I'm gonna fill that in with paint. Okay, so now the tricky part is that we have to let this dry. It needs to get really dry or it's not gonna work. So while this one is drying, okay, we're gonna leave it, we're gonna let it dry. While this one is drying, you could move on to one of your other pieces because you got 3. So you'll do like a layer on this one, then you can do a layer on this one, then you can do a layer on this one, and then come back to this one. So I'm gonna let this dry for a little bit and then I'll come back and I'll show you what you would do next. Okay, so after that first layer has dried, this is just me adding a second layer. So I'm gonna go in and I'm just going to make some different shapes and place them how I want them. And then again, I'm just gonna put a different layer of paint over the top. Okay, so this part is kind of important. When you guys are mixing your paint, I don't want you just putting the paint like straight into each other. Like, don't do orange and then put the yellow glob right into the orange glob, okay? You're gonna make a glob of orange and then you're gonna make a separate glob of yellow, okay? So see how I'm putting it not together. So then when I'm mixing my colors, I can just pick up a little bit of each and put it on a different place and mix that together. That way, if it's not the color that you want, it's way easier to fix it and it just doesn't waste paint. Okay, so keep your colors separate and then mix them in a separate pile. Kind of like this. Okay, so I did a few more layers of tape. I did, remember, so if we look at our little, the chart we're going off of, okay? So for this one, you need to leave the tape on between each layer, and you do 4 different colors and 4 different layers of tape. So on my paper, I've done 4 layers of tape and 4 layers of paint, and I left the tape on for the whole time. Okay, for your next one, okay, so for the second one, you're gonna take the tape off between every layer. So for that one, you'll tape it and then you'll paint it, let it dry, pull the tape off, and then you'll tape it again, paint a different color, let it dry, pull the tape off, okay, and you'll do that 4 times. And then your last one, you get a pick if you wanna keep it on or take it off or a mixture of both, okay? But now is the fun part. So this is my favorite part because you get to take all the tape off and see how it turned out. So I'm just gonna take the tape off. Okay, a couple of things that will help this work better is if you use really thin layers of paint, okay? Mine's kind of gloppy, and then you also need to make sure you let it dry good, okay? Because if you use thick layers and you don't let it dry, then it turns out kind of weird and gloppy. We're just gonna pull up all the tape. Let's see, these are on right here. But this is the fun part because now you get to actually see what happened. Okay, so I'm just gonna keep taking this off and I'll show you what it looks like at the end. Okay, so I just pulled off all the tape and this is what I came up with, okay? This is what I got. So you'll just have a big wad of tape. And it's kind of fun because you don't really know what you're gonna end up with. Looking back, I kind of wish I would have painted first, done like a layer of paint and then taped, and then painted, then taped, then painted, then taped, because I don't really like that this is white. I think it's cool over here, but I wish I would have made it, like done a background color. But anyway, you get the gist, okay? So follow the rules, and then peel off the tape, and you'll get some fun stuff, okay? Kind of surprised, but yes, and that's it.